people have to wonder, where does Sunny Hostin get her opinions?
Yeah.
Like you said, it's obviously from her husband. She has to tell her what to say on The View, because without it, she's got nothing up there. She's not very bright. But the problem with her is that she went full racist. She injected skin color into a fairly generic behavior seen in all spouses, regardless of skin color. People marry, they listen to each other, they have something in common with them, they share their political views. She just didn't want to upset her husband by saying her husband makes her do everything, and then she'd have to accuse him of being a racist. Because if he told her that this is what white women do, then he's a racist.
What do you get when Greg Gutfeld and Bill Maher decide to roast The View together? A tag team spectacle so blistering it made Whoopi's wig contemplate early retirement. This wasn't shaded, was a total solar blackout. Gutfeld went for the hypocrisy with sniper precision, while Maher drenched it in gasoline and lit the match with sarcasm. If you thought daytime TV was just hot topics and coffee mugs, think again. This was no round table, it was a full-blown wrecking ball with zero commercial breaks and no survivors.
And by the way, out there, that hat that you keep wearing, that red hat that says "Make America Great Again," that tells people that you go along with this. So you might as well just put a swastika on the hat.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Because we see it anyway.
I'm not going to defend Donald Trump ever, but I would never say that we should put the swastika on the cap, because I think you can hate Donald Trump. You can't hate everybody who likes him. It's half the country. I don't want to live in that country. I don't want to live in the country where I hate half the country, and I don't hate half the country.
How dare you disagree?
The View, a panel show that often feels like a group therapy session for ideological burnout. It's a daytime carnival of clashing egos, tangled narratives, and caffeinated confusion, where nuance is drowned out by applause lines and truth is the first casualty. You could seat a Nobel laureate at that table and they'd be emotionally waterboarded by minute 5, into this tornado of televised groupthink crash to unlikely allies, Greg Gutfeld and Bill Maher, two men who agree on almost nothing, except that The View has become a national punchline.
Sausage maker Johnsonville is recalling more than 42,000 pounds of pork sausage for possible contamination with plastic fibers. Fortunately, authorities were able to track all 42,000 pounds to a single location in New York City.
Johnsonville may have recalled 42,000 pounds of sausage this week, but even that pales in comparison to the meaty takedown Gutfeld and Maher delivered. Gutfeld, the Fox News firestarter whose sarcasm is practically caffeinated, and Maher, the liberal iconoclast who believes political correctness is the true pandemic joined forces. Like ideological sharks circling the same leaky lifeboat, Gutfeld, for his part, treats mocking The View like a hobby that pays dividends. Watching him skewer that panel has become its own recurring Fox News mini-series.
Joy Behar calls her a 10. I mean, how dare she objectify a woman with a sexist rating system, but it's such a typical thing from a 1.5.
Well,
And the panel on The View unleashes a hot take. Gutfeld hears the bat signal. Gutfeld hears the bat signal. Eyes roll, snark loads, and the roast begins. He once compared the show to a group project where no one read the assignment but everyone insists they're the expert. Joy Behar gets history wrong in real time. Sunny Hostin plays courtroom semantics with her own opinions. And Whoopi Goldberg has slowly morphed into the show's resident philosopher, though half her quotes seem plagiarized from fortune cookies and YouTube comments. It's not a discussion, it's a cacophony.
Behar gets racism after all. She's been black on Halloween. Yeah. But Joy wasn't there on the show. Apparently Mondays are her days off when she feeds in the pasture. But that is convenient, right? It's like one of my aunts dies every time Bran Kilmeade wants to hang out. Maybe Joy needs a full day to read her hate mail, and that's just from the rest of the...
The View doesn't host dialogue, it hosts target practice. Dissenters aren't invited to engage, they're summoned to confess. And if you survive the earol's audible sighs and whispered asides, you might get to finish a thought. Gutfeld's beef is with the show's faux inclusivity, a chilly welcome mat, where conservative views are treated like biohazards. He calls it performance activism, Broadway with worse lighting and eyebrows that do all the shouting. And the teleprompter guy. According to Gutfeld, he's the real host praying for a break before the next misinformation monologue goes viral.
Obviously, just the parts that you said. Did I watch a whole episode of The View?
No woman can do that unless you're stupid. But
I have a job.
Here's the thing. How can they call themselves progressives when they keep saying that nothing has progressed? Then it's on them.
Right. I just wish I could have, would have watched if I could, would have been Joy Behar watching that.
Yes.
And being like, I totally made the right call. Like, it was not an accident that they had him there on her day off.
Yes.
When she was, presented herself as the, expert on systemic racism as a white lady.
Well, she had that one Halloween where she went to Diana Ross and she felt she was treated differently.
When you think the blaze has cooled, in walks Bill Maher, HBO iconoclast, with a detonator in one hand and a grin in the other. If Gutfeld is a sniper, Maher is the demolition crew. He's always been the kind of liberal who makes progressives nervous, pro-speech, pro-weed and anti-nonsense no matter the source. His main critique, that The View treats disagreement not as healthy tension but as ideological heresy. Speak out of turn, and suddenly you're problematic, unenlightened, or worse. Trending on Twitter with a forced apology. Next.
Well, I had a different question, but it struck me that in the first segment you used the term woke, and you said that woke is what was sort of ruining everything. And I know that you're.
No, I didn't say ruining everything. I said that's why Trump could get reelected.
That's why Trump could get reelected. So the term woke has been, in my view, co-opted by the right and weaponized and bastardized. And so I was surprised to hear you use the term, because historically, as you know, because I think you're quite brilliant, that woke is a word used by the Black community to note that we must be aware of social injustices.
But words
and
migrate.
So why is that a bad thing?
It's not a bad thing, and originally that was absolutely.
The View, Maher suggests, is like enduring a fire drill where you're blamed for the smoke. The hosts quote half-read articles, speak in hashtags, and confuse emotional volume with intellectual weight. If Gutfeld accuses them of faking open dialogue, Maher says they're faking curiosity. His takedowns come with the grimace of a man watching a party he once liked devolve into costume karaoke, when every segment feels like a tribal ritual in ideological cosplay. Maher doesn't see discussion, he sees a diagnosis.
Week over, because I got so many texts this week because she attacked me the week
Yeah,
before.
sure.
So everybody was like, "Oh, Bill, I get you're enjoying the karma." First of all, I'm going to talk about this at the end of my show next week, teaser. But there is no fucking thing as karma, okay? Get over that. Attacks me on a regular basis. She says stupid shit on a regular basis. They just happen to go inside. Yeah.
Gutfeld and Maher land on the same surreal page. The View has become less a panel and more a live-action meme. Gutfeld calls it ideological theater. Maher calls it cult brunch. They agree the show punishes critical thought, rewards echo chamber applause, and treats dissent like heresy. And the few times the hosts tried to clap back, it was like dousing a grease fire with glitter, shiny, loud, and completely ineffective. Audiences weren't just entertained, they were vindicated because the criticism hit a nerve. And worse,
I'm old enough to remember when it was the conservatives who hated the Jews.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bill Maher, who has been the standard bearer for liberalism and in many ways leftism until the woke went bananas in this last decade, but for decades, that's what this guy has represented in America. I want you to note the tone they all talk with him. I want you to look at Sonny Huston's body language and the way they look at him and everything else. Just because he is a lefty who hasn't gone completely bananas, here they are.
rather than respond thoughtfully, The View chose the silent treatment. No rebuttals, no reflections, just tight smiles and a swift change of topic. It was as if someone dropped a mirror on the table and everyone looked away. The irony, the show that claims to champion difficult conversations couldn't stomach one from outside the circle. Gutfeld and Maher didn't deliver a hit job, they delivered a wake-up call. A very public, very necessary, and very funny intervention, because when the clowns start making more sense than the circus, maybe it's time to examine the tent.
Canada, apparently they're throwing tariffs on manatee meat and bovine semen, which means The View is very unhappy.
Oh,
The View wants to be taken seriously again. It needs to invite dissent not just as a prop, but as a principle. Because when your biggest critics are sharper, funnier, and more intellectually consistent than your hosts, the problem isn't the guests, it's the script. And don't think this was a one-time roast. Gutfeld and Maher have found a shared target, and while they may never dine together, they'll gladly toast each other from a distance as long as The View remains a satire of itself. When your critics agree you've become unwatchable. It's not politics, it's prognosis. Next.
Ah, you look tantalizing. You know, I make fun of The View a lot, but that's only because they keep talking. Because COVID also taught Sunny Hostin how to get her groceries delivered.
3 years, that's when I discovered Instacart, and I give them a big tip because they don't always pay their people well, and it's so that's been an issue, I think, for the company. But man, you can get toiletries, you can get fire logs.
Fire logs? She had to tell the audience that she tips big because even she knows she sounds.
The full circle irony. Maher used to share values with the show's hosts. Gutfeld was once their designated adversary, a foil to sharpen their arguments. But now, both approach The View like disappointed teachers grading a failing group project. It's no longer playful satire, it's a warning flare. The show that once promised tough debates has become a safe space for dissent is punished, irony is extinct, and independent thought has been replaced by synchronized outrage. And the voices calling this out, somehow, they sound more reasonable than the ones still seated at the table.
Who, by the way, I hope is still a friend. We can disagree with each other. Should not be canceled or put off her show, as much as I totally disagree with her crazy statement. Free speech. She should be there. She shouldn't get a timeout.
Not every single thing has to be for everybody.
Right.
We can have platforms that have stuff on them that not everyone on that platform or who consumes stuff on that platform enjoys. And The View is a particularly weird place to do a cancellation.
It's called The View.
It's called The View. It's not called The Facts.
Yeah, but
It's
isn't it interesting that it's wrong? I mean, I don't think they meant this when Barbara Walters invented it a long time ago, but it's
Time, when common sense feels like a collector's item. It took a Fox News joker and a liberal atheist to say what audiences have long felt. The View is no longer a discussion, it's a screech. Chaotic, disjointed, and desperate to remain relevant. It's devolved into a midday circus with coffee mugs. And the final punchline. If they really wanted balance, they'd hand Greg and Bill a couple of chairs and let the sparks fly. But don't hold your breath. Because in a world where applause is louder than substance, it took the court jesters to finally speak.
who, by the way, I hope is still a friend. We can disagree with each other. Should not be canceled or put off her show, as much as I totally disagree with her crazy statement. Free speech. She should be there. She shouldn't get a timeout.
not every single thing has to be for everybody.
Right.
We can have platforms that have stuff on them that not everyone on that platform or who consumes stuff on that platform enjoys. And The View is a particularly weird place to do a cancellation.
It's called The View.
It's called The View. It's not called The Facts.
Yeah, but
It's
isn't it interesting that it's wrong? I mean, I don't think they meant this when Barbara Walters invented it a long time ago, but it's
The full circle irony. Maher used to share values with the show's hosts. Gutfeld was once their designated adversary, a foil to sharpen their arguments. But now, both approach The View like disappointed teachers grading a failing group project. It's no longer playful satire, it's a warning flare. The show that once promised tough debates has become a safe space for dissent is punished, irony is extinct, and independent thought has been replaced by synchronized outrage. And the voices calling this out, somehow, they sound more reasonable than the ones still seated at the table. The full circle irony. Maher used to share values with the show's hosts. Gutfeld was once their designated adversary, a foil to sharpen their arguments. But now, both approach The View like disappointed teachers grading a failing group project. It's no longer playful satire, it's a warning flare. The show that once promised tough debates has become a safe space for dissent is punished.